Good evening, everyone, and welcome to In the Know with CaT Bobino. And today I am collaborating with Hey Dr. Tay, and we are going to have a wonderful conversation about being parents and in STEM. So welcome, Hey Dr. Tay. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Kat, for allowing me to have the opportunity to co-host with you, because I remember meeting you and you actually interviewed me. So it's great to actually kind of do a flip the switch with this, and hopefully have the opportunity to get into your brain, because I'm not a mother. So with this topic, it allows me to learn from others. So I think that's very perfect for my situation, since the individuals we have coming up here have the wisdom. But for those of you who do not know me, I am Dr. Tay. I am a scientist, specifically a neuroscientist. I now work at NIH, and the big things that I love to do on the outside, my passion work, is advocating for diversity in STEM and allowing kids to explore STEM through a lot of different activities. So excited to be here. Thank you again.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for joining me. And then our guest today is, I already asked you how to say it and I forgot, Aisha Lawrey, who is TNC Head of Global Education Programs at AWS. She works in STEM and she's also a mother. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I think this is an awesome topic. And right before we actually started, Kat and I were just talking about our, kind of issues with even getting on to this podcast, dealing with motherhood. So I told her this was just like perfect timing. And it's a great topic to talk about.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So just to catch up, anyone who's watching this, I usually would drop my son off at my sister's house, be able to do this podcast without any interruptions. However, I wasn't able to do that today. He's in the other room, currently being soothed by Coco Melon. And we're going to hope that Coco Melon keeps him soothed for the next hour.
Yes.
That is too funny. Too funny. And I knew this would be a great opportunity to bring Aisha in. Aisha, we always talk about STEM, and we've collaborated on a few different things in the past. But I think while talking to Kat about May and the programs and stuff that we can highlight during the month of May, we were like, let's combine some things and talk about what people are talking about at home at the table, with their family, with their friends, and that we don't actually get resources and people within the fields to really talk to us about. Some of us are afraid to talk about these things out in the open or even at our jobs, right? So the other part of this is making this a normacy, allowing it to be a usual conversation, a common conversation, so people know, one, a lot of the challenges that we go through, that y'all go through, and me in the future, it's not something that you're by yourself and just unique to yourself, right? A lot of it is common. So having some of those tools and ways to navigate based on your journey and your wisdom, I think is the best part of this opportunity, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess we'll dive in. I don't know if you want me to start off, Kat, or you want to plug first.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm the person with no kids. So I want to come in with all the inquiries based on the conversations we have with the Solo Dolo crew. And I guess let's start with the STEM journey and talk a little bit, just a quick summary of who you are, both of you, and your STEM journeys, just in case someone doesn't know, so that way we can combine it with motherhood when we go to the next step and next question. So I guess we'll start with Aisha, since she's the guest today. If you could tell us just a quick summary of what you do, your STEM past and journey in your career now.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I know that Dr. Tay has heard this many a times, but I'm an electrical engineer by training. When I was young, I had no idea of what engineering was, let alone knew any engineers. I'm first generation, so neither one of my parents went to college. I'm the oldest of 4 girls, so a lot of estrogen in the house. So a lot of responsibility, as well. And I definitely felt that. So just growing up, my parents really emphasized education, and that was a big focus. And since I was the oldest, I was pretty much like the second mommy to my sisters, and just got into engineering because one of my teachers in high school, when I was in 11th grade, talked to me about engineering. There wasn't all of this conversation as it is now about STEM. Like, people didn't even say STEM. They started to say like SMET, which I'm glad that they changed it, because SMET just does not sound good. Um, so I'm so happy that it's STEM. But when my teacher talked to me about engineering, before that, I thought I was going to be a lawyer because I was on a debate team. I love to talk. And it was like, okay, my mom watched a lot of law shows in the 80s. So I was like, I want to go into law. These women don't look like me, but they look glamorous. And they carry a briefcase. And in the 80s, if you carried a briefcase, you were important, you were somebody. So I was like, no matter what I do, I need to carry a briefcase. And so when my teacher told me about engineering, she was doing some teaching at a college nearby, and asked my parents if she could take me with her to the university so she could introduce me to some of the professors, who were in the different disciplines, because I didn't even realize that there were so many. I'm just like, okay, I'm interested in engineering. Now she's like, okay, well, what type? And I'm like, there are different kinds, right? So when she brought me to the university, they were all men. None of the men looked like me. But I will say that one of the professors, he was an Asian man in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering. He is the only one who actually brought a traffic light to come and talk to me. So when he brought this traffic light, he talked to me about how the traffic light worked. He, showed me how like computer engineers help to program the lights. That's how they change different colors. And that was really impactful to me because I was 16 and I was starting to learn how to drive. So I was paying even more attention to traffic lights than I had done before, because I'm learning to drive. And he told me, no matter where you go in the world, whether it's a city, a town, a village, everyone is going to have at least one traffic light, right? So, and he talked about how that traffic lights help to save lives. And that's one of the things that engineers do, is that they help people and help society. So I thought it was really cool. And I did remember from like, my Black history that a Black man, invented the traffic light. So that also, resonated with me as well. And that's honestly how I decided to choose electrical engineering. It was just because he brought something that I could touch and feel, and I could relate to it. So I was like, okay, this is the one that I want to do, while the other professors sound like Charlie Brown. It was like, wah, 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 wah. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So I can't really be interested because you did not really capture me. Right. So that's how I got into it. Love engineering. But once I started working in industry, of course, as we know, not many women, not many minorities. And I felt very isolated and alone in a lot of the spaces that I was in. So I decided to pivot and really focus on STEM education, went into nonprofits and focused on that, as well as education policy, and said I was never going back into industry again. However, 2 years ago, I started working at Amazon, AWS, Amazon Web Services, and I had no idea of the whole division that they had around training and certification for education programs that goes from K to 12 up to adults. So it was like a summary of everything that I had done in industry as well as in nonprofits. And I can continue to do the work that I love, which is really appealing to younger students, appealing to college students, and even appealing to adults who, maybe they did not go to college, they don't have degrees, but they still want to get into technology, which can be a game changer for their families. And so I get to touch on all those areas and really think about the strategy behind how do we go about meeting people where they are and trying to train them, not for our own benefit. As much as we would love to, hire additional people, we know that people need jobs everywhere. So it's not for our benefit, but the training that we provide, and all of our resources are free, we provide them so that we are impacting to really help close the IT skills gap. And so that's something, because it's really important to me, I'm happy to be doing this work at a company who values it as well. And so that has been my journey, and that's where I am now.
Thank you. I know it's really hard sometimes to summarize.
Yeah, I'm just like, I don't want to be going on too long because I love this work and what I do, but I also want to make sure like people really get the impact of, the fact that I had no idea about what I wanted to do, that my teacher impacted me, and I'm doing something that I really love, and I'm able to do both, right? I'm still connected to technology, but I'm also really connected to the education as well. And so, just letting people know you can combine. It's okay to have a lot of different interests, because sometimes people, just like when I was younger, I'm sure you have heard the saying, like, you don't want to be the jack of all trades, right? So it's like, stay focused, right? You don't want to have all these different things. But I tell students now, if you have 3-4 different interests, go for them all at the same time if you want. See if you can combine them. So
I revamped that saying, and I say I'm a Jane of all trades and a master of all of them too. So
yes, I love it.
And I use Jacqueline. I'm a Jacqueline of many trades.
I love it. Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that, because it touches on a lot of different things, and I'm sure we'll hear about similar things throughout a lot of other stories. And Kat, I know you've heard it with a lot of the interviews you've already done, and I've heard it with a lot of the individuals who served in a lot of programs that I've had as well, with having that relatability that connects you to the career aspect or the journey in STEM that you eventually go on, and how that's more fulfilling once you find that passion and connected to the career as well. Oh man,
I knew he was going to make an entrance.
Hey, this is what we're talking about.
So perfect program for him to be involved. So Kat, we'll come to you, because I think this is another part of the exciting part of this program for me, is being able to be like, Kat, you got to answer my question.
Right. Yeah. I'm not used to being on this side of the interviews. And I do want to take the time to thank everyone who is joining us and using the chat. I see you, Renee, saying that's me. She says she uses, and he wasted tea on me. I use multi-hyphenated. Okay. But let's talk about me.
Yes, your STEM journey, Kat.
So, I'm born and raised in Oakland, California. Even now, we don't have a lot of STEM advocacy. We don't teach our kids about it. Me growing up without the internet, I, told people I love animals. So everyone thought I should be a veterinarian. So that's what I thought I'd go to school for. I went to undergrad, got my bachelor's in biology. I started a grad program in not animal biology, but it was in microbiology, because I had an advisor who did it. And I realized that wasn't for me. Then I worked for veterinarians, and I realized that wasn't for me. As much as I love animals and as much as I love the work that they do, and I can appreciate a veterinarian, I don't want to be the person who makes the decisions on someone's pets, right? And just within the medical field as well as veterinary field, it's a lot of money. And I feel like it's a lot of things that they're requiring you to do or asking you to do that doesn't need to be done. Like, for example, hold on, man. For example, your dog might eat chocolate, right? And the first thing they might say is you've got to give them charcoal, and Carter. Okay. You got to give them chalk. I mean, you have to give them charcoal. You have to give them Iviness fluids. You got to do all this stuff, but they don't tell you that milk chocolate is different from dark chocolate, right? And that dogs really get sick. Carter, hold on. They get sick from dark chocolate.
I didn't even know that.
We're going to come back to me. Let me see what he needs, and I'll come back.
So, I mean, you know, we're talking about our journey. So I guess we'll dive into, you know, motherhood and when it, so I love how we have this dynamic here because we have CaT, who is, you know, newer to being a mother, and Aisha, you've been there for a while. So
yeah.
You know, the common question and common, I guess, statement that we say as women in any type of career, we always say, well, you know, it's just not the time, right? Like in trying to find a good time to settle down and have the kids, you know, when things are less stressful and so on. But when I think about a STEM career, I'm like, it's never the right time.
No.
I have never heard anyone in a STEM career all the way to retirement until they were retired say, you know, I have free time and availability, right?
Right.
So, you know, on that same line of, you know, thinking about planning and motherhood and so on, and, you know, dealing with the extras on top of your career, I guess take me through that journey. How did that, you know, for both of you?
You know, I will say for me, it's so funny. If you were to ask people in my family, would I be a mother? They would say no, right? Because I was, like I said, you know, earlier, I was like second mom to my sisters. So because of that, I honestly said I never wanted children. Just because, you know, I took care of my sisters, like I took them to school, and, you know, I know my parents needed help. So I would pick them up. Like my youngest sister, we're like almost 12 years, 13 years apart. So she stayed in the room with me. So, and my mother, she didn't breastfeed. So I would get up and get my sister's bottle. I would feed her because my mom had to be to work at 6 a.m. So I was just like, what is this motherhood stuff? Like, I don't want no parts of it. Right? Take her to daycare, pick her up from daycare, go get my other sisters, help them with their homework, start dinner, you know, so when my mom came home, she could finish. And, you know, so I was just like, my mother didn't know how to do hair. So I was the hair braider. So on Sunday nights, like it would be like line up my sisters and I would have to do their hair and do my hair. And I just was like, I don't want any parts of this. So I really went, you know, thinking, especially once I got a little bit older and even started dating, I was like, first of all, this is what I said. I didn't want to be in a relationship with someone who had children because I didn't want them to have to feel like they're choosing, and I didn't want to feel neglected. I'm just going to keep it so real with y'all. So it's not like I purposely avoided them, but it was, you know, it just kind of happened that way. And then I meet a man who is my husband in college who adores and loves children. I mean, when I was visiting him, we went to two different colleges. When I would come to visit him, he would be babysitting kids. And I would be like, now, what man in his 20s, like, is in college babysitting somebody else's kids? You know, I'm like, we go into the movies and he's like, oh, so I'm babysitting so-and-so's kids. Like, so it is so funny that we have twins now. So we have twins and they'll be 16 in July. And my husband in college had god twins and they were a boy and a girl. We have a boy and a girl. So it's just so crazy. I've known his god twins since they were toddlers. And so now they're like in their 20s. So it's so crazy. But I didn't want children. And then as my husband and I's relationship progressed, and then, you know, he asked me to marry him, I'm like, yeah, I always wanted to be a wife. Even as a little girl playing, like some of my friends, they would have their dolls, like, I want to be a mommy. I'm like, I want to be a wife. That's all I wanted. I wanted to be a wife. So I can remember distinctly talking to my mom, probably like a year after we had been married, to say, Mom, how do I tell Dakar I don't think I want children? And she was like, girl, get a divorce.
Oh.
Because she said, you knew from the moment you met this man that he loved kids. And by the time we were married, he had about 8 godkids. And we were going to birthday parties. And before we do this, like, I got to drop. So I'm like, sir. And I was feeling pressure. So I was stalling. I tried to stall as long as I could. So we didn't have children until we had been married for 7 years. And every time he would say something, I'd be like, wait, but I need to do this. And I'm going back to grad school and we should get a dog. And, then he was like, okay, woman, that's enough. Like, it's been 7 years. So I had to really say to myself, you already knew this man wanted children. All right, it's been a long time. What you gonna do? So I think that I tell people that's how we have twins, between my husband and between my mother. The two of them ganged up on me, and that's how we got twins. But I never felt like I was that maternal kind of woman. But it's so funny. And people always said it to me, and I'm like, whatever. When you have your own kids, it'll be different, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. That's not going to happen to me. But it honestly did. I mean, I was fighting it up until the time I was pregnant. I kept telling myself that I'm not pregnant. I'm like, nope, nope, nope. Until I actually saw their limbs moving around. And I was like, oh my goodness, I feel like an alien. I can actually see these body parts. And especially my son, he would turn over and his elbow would just be poked out. And I could see my belly and it would be his elbow or his foot. And I just got amazed at that. And then once they were born, I truly, honestly fell in love with them. And, it's been going ever since. It truly is, as Kat will definitely say, it's the toughest job and the most loving at the same time. So you get it on both ends. And so
we're gonna get into that soon. I want to hear about those tough jobs, but how it's more loving and so on. Let's get to Kat, and Kat, tell us your journey into motherhood as well.
Well, I actually have a similar story, except for I was the youngest of 4, and I have 2 sisters, a brother. And, growing up, my sister actually started having kids. She's 11 years older than me when I was 10. So I had a nephew when I was 10, a niece when I was 11, and another niece when I was 15, and they were in the house. So I was changing diapers. I had the bottles. I had all that stuff. Even when I went to college and I would come back for a summer break, spring break, I would land. Monday rolled around. Oh, it's your turn to go pick them up from school. I went on field trips. I did all of that every time I came home from college. And so, I really got a lot of that motherhood practice, which made me be like, this may not be for me. I don't know. This is a lot of work, and I'm only on the outside looking in. I'm not even the primary person, and it's a lot of work, and they would always come to me and, see, okay, well, I'm gonna get to that comment in a second, but I definitely was weary of it, right? And so going and dating and all that stuff, I wasn't ready to have a kid. I told everybody I wasn't trying to have kids. I got plenty of nieces and nephews. I have 2 nieces, 3 nephews at this point. And I was like, yeah, I've done all that. I've changed all their diapers. I've taken them to the store with me. I've taken them to the park. I've taken them on field trips. I've done all of that. I don't want it. Right. And so in the comments, Tavari said I bamboozled him into a 3rd child, which I didn't do. But when we got together, I told him I didn't want kids, and he already had 2 adult children, so he wasn't trying to start over. I completely understood. The relationship continued. Then I got into my late 30s, and I was like, well, maybe I can do this. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe I am getting that little bug, and if I'm going to do it, I need to do it now because I'm in my late 30s, and, I don't know if it was the best decision, but I do love my son who came in here causing a ruckus. Um, and he is amazing and he's hilarious. He doesn't let me sleep to this day. That's my biggest complaint. But other than that, I'm proud to, be his mom, and he is my spitting image. So I couldn't deny him if I wanted to. He is mine. And that definitely was my journey into motherhood.
So since we're already on the edge of this, so remind me, Aisha, your kids are about to be 16.
Yes.
And CaT, your son is how old again?
2.5.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're going to dive into this. I know this is going to be dangerous territory. Ooh. So let's start with challenges of being a mother while being in your STEM career. Anyone,
yes,
just throw them.
So let me rewind a little bit because I had a little terror who didn't let me talk. But I went into STEM. I went into biology. I love the animals. Went into animal biology, and then I started working in finance, which happens sometimes. You go into your field, but you don't actually work in your field. I was living in the South, and when I came back to California, and I would tell people I'm a biologist, everyone I met was like, I've never met a Black female biologist. I've never met a Black scientist, period. And I was like, how? If you know a Black entrepreneur, a Black air pilot, whatever, you should know a scientist. We're here. But it started me on my journey of putting out there the facts that we're here, we're in STEM, that there's a variety of people and a variety of jobs in STEM, which led me to the podcast. And I had a TV show, a local show out here. And in all the things that I do, I even wrote a book. And currently I have children's books that's coming out based on my son called Carter Can Be. And there's a set of 4. So that's my new journey. But working a 9 to 5, as well as going through your passions that you might have, STEM, and doing the podcast and doing going to the meetings or going to meet new people or putting together a workshop and all that stuff is tiring. And then on top of that, you have to do it with the toddler who wants all your attention. I only have one, so I'm his best friend. And, it just becomes one of those things where they say, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you have to do it between 5 and 10 when you get off work. No, I'd have to do it at work because 5 and 10 is harder time. Yeah. I have to juggle that. Maybe the weekends. I will say Tavari is a good co-parent. So whenever I have to do stuff or I have to go somewhere, he steps up all the time. I'm very thankful for that because I know not everyone has a good co-parent, but he is a good co-parent. And, whenever I need something, if I'm going out of town or whatever, he steps up. But the struggle is the time, the commitment, and making sure you are spending as much time with your kids as possible so that they feel loved while trying to do your passion.
So I never thought about that. When you have an only child, technically you are the friend.
Girl, you are. So when people would ask me, like, how do you do it with twins, right? That's all I know. But when some of my other girlfriends who had single children, when we would get together, their kid was always coming in interrupting. And I would be like, what is wrong with your kid?
That's best
because the thing is, I would put the twins in their high chair, in the playpen. I could cook, I could clean. They would talk with each other. So I don't know anything about that. So when people are like, oh my God, how do you do it with twins? I'll be like, oh my God, how do you do it with this one needy kid?
Right.
It is needy. They want your undivided attention.
Yeah, this is new to me. I never even thought about this. Yes. I have a sister. So, we relied on each other. We bothered each other. We played with each other. We talked about the parent.
That only child is real.
Yeah, especially, I would say, I don't want to take anything away from dads, but especially being the mom, you bonded with them for really 10 months of them being inside you. They don't know how to separate the two. You are them and they are you. And so, when they're like, I'm going to go do this, it's we going to go do this, right? Because you are the best friend.
Yeah, that was honestly like a little bit hard for me because whenever like there's some babies, you know, you try to pass them to somebody and it's like they don't want to go. They like clinging to their mother like for dear life,
Right.
like a cat. My kids, I'd be like, oh, and they would latch on to the neck. They people be passing them around and they would just go, right? When it was time for them to start preschool, I was so emotional. They were like, bye, mom. And I was like, oh my God, you don't care about me. So that was really tough because they knew that they had each other.
Right.
So they were going and, you know, they were in the same class in daycare. So it's like I always could see Zaire or Zoe on the other side. So that single child life, I would be like, I don't know how you do it with one kid. Like everybody needs to just have twins.
Right. Right.
Everybody thought
right.
like everybody thought I'd be emotional taking him to daycare, or you know, when I went out of town this weekend, why you didn't take him? For what? He has a daddy. You know, I need a break. Right. I need to take my moment, my me time.
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing that up. And the other thing that I wanted to highlight that you kind of shared, you tiptoed over a little bit, you know, is you deciding to go into your motherhood during your 30s, right? And I think a lot of times, and even myself, I have heard this so much where it was like, why did you wait this long? When are you going to do it? You know, especially in the Black community.
Yeah.
You can go home to the family reunion, yes. And I'm always asked, well, Cherie, when you going, you know, yeah. And don't you think you should have done this a while ago? And, you know, and so on. So thank you for highlighting that it was okay for you to decide to do that in your 30s when you were more comfortable with it. And I'm pretty sure, you know, I get it. You weren't pressured. You didn't feel like you weren't in a rush to do it, right? You did give us a little briefing about already feeling the spot as a parent and parenting, right? So I know you weren't in a rush, but when you decided it being in your 30s, I think it was great being able to share that with us, as a lot of us are pressured to do it way before 30 and way before we think we have our ducks even close to being in a row, right? So I appreciate you highlighting that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to like touch on that too. My husband he's older, not that much. He's 4 years older. Right. And so at some points in our relationship and marriage, like it makes a difference. It doesn't make a difference. It makes a difference. It doesn't. Right. So when we were first dating, it didn't really make a difference. Right. But then as he graduated, I'm still in college. When I graduate from college, his friends are getting married and they're starting to have children, and we're still dating. And so then we get married and his friends have kids. Now it's like, okay, we need to have kids. And I'm like, we don't need to have kids, right? I'm like, let me just make it to my 30s. Let me just make it to 30. And I made it. I turned 30 in January, and I found out I was pregnant in February. So I was like, thank you. At least I made it to 30. Like,
so, but for you, Aisha, 30, where were you at in your STEM journey at that time?
So I was, you know, at that point, I had left practicing engineering and I went into nonprofits, which was also something that, you know, I was really thinking about, because I knew when I decided that I was going to leave, and I came home and told my husband, like, I'm going to quit my job. And he was like, okay, but you understand there are some changes that need to happen. Like, that's all those shoes you love. Like, your salary is going to get cut in half, sis.
So I knew that was coming.
We're going to have to like adjust. And we were looking to buy a home, right? So it's like, we need to save. Your salary is getting cut in half. If this is what you really want to do, I will really support you. So that also was something that was on our minds as well at the time, because we felt like, for us, okay, we want to get a home. We want to make sure that that's established. You know, we want to try to get the adjustment of, you know, me losing half of my salary, and how does that look for us before we bring other human beings into this. Right. So it was something that we were thinking about, because I just made a huge pivot, right, into a totally unknown area. So that, I mean, it was very scary, right? It was really scary. So I had time when I made that pivot. I had maybe about 3 years after I made it to kind of settle in and get the groove of it before we had children. And that really worked for me. I would have been super frantic, I feel, even more if I just said, okay, I'm going to quit my job. Oh my goodness, we're pregnant. What we going to do? Like, we don't have no space. And
Right.
so I was the one who was constantly thinking like, okay, I need to have this. I need to have this. I need to have this. And meanwhile, my husband was just like, listen, whether we have it or not, it's going to have, like, it's going to work. Like, don't worry. Like, it'll be okay. But I'm happy that, like I said, I had that time within my STEM journey to kind of get acclimated with, you know, being in a nonprofit, because that was very different. Like not having resources, being like the cook, the janitor, the person who write the grants, looking for speakers, like cleaning up. Like I did everything, right? So that requires a lot of time, you know, as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now that I mean, we touched on time, but juggling time, motherhood, and being in STEM. Um I guess I want to go on to like some stories. Can you think of any like stories that stick with you when I combine those three elements, time, motherhood, and STEM, that you would be willing to share with us? Because once again, it's hitting on, these are not the most unique things to just one individual. It's actually very common for mothers everywhere, right? So just want to share that and highlight some of those and what you learned through that.
Well, I'll say this. To me, and it's not for everybody, but to me, it's big to have a community, right? Whether your partner is your community, you have your siblings who can step up, friends who can step up, but community is like the biggest thing, right? And for example, I did a STEM event in March, and I had partnered with this museum in Ohio called COSI. We were giving away 750 kits. I also put this program together with other organizations to do it. And we did a walkthrough the day before, and that's when I found out that the Secret Service was there and that the White House was showing up to the event. And so it was the second gentleman, Kamala Harris's husband, who came. I don't know how they found out about it. I don't know what happened. Everything changed the day before. So now I'm on the phone calling people. I mean, my son was already going to be in daycare for a majority of it, but I was like, okay. I called his dad, like, hey, you need to go pick him up and do this. I need to go get an outfit or something. And news is going to be there. I got to make sure everything is running right. And I look okay, right? And so he stepped up and he, went and picked him up and also got him dressed and all this other stuff the day of the event. But his thing too was, our son needs to see you doing this. And me as, a typical non-mom was like, why? He's 2. He's not going to remember this. But he was like, nope, we're coming. He needs to see this, even if he doesn't remember it. So he showed up, showed out, made sure everything also went smoothly, talked to people for me so that I wasn't completely overwhelmed, but also I didn't have a toddler in my arms while I'm trying to talk to the second gentleman and the Secret Service and chasing him around and doing all that stuff. Like his dad stepped up and kept him still so that I could do what I was doing.
I love that. And I think that is important as well, right? We don't think about that at all, right? I mean, we think we have the conversation about villages. We have the conversation about thank you for allowing me to still be in my career while being a mother, but we never combine those. Well, we rarely do, shall I say.
Yeah, we rarely do.
If it is happening, we're not talking about it at home. So that's amazing. Aisha, do you have any? I know you have some similar stories.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, I will say that when I went back to work and I started traveling, the twins were probably toddlers. So they were maybe 18 months, 2 years old, somewhere around that time. And, I love them to death. But I said when they were born, like, I think I may want to stay home and talk to my husband. And he was like, I mean, okay, if that's what you want, we got to do some readjusting because we're about to lose the other half of the half. But then when they came and I stayed home with them, I was like, I got to go to work. I am so serious. Like that is I mean, I think people really underestimate stay-at-home moms
Yes.
because it is a job. You're not just sitting around watching soap opera. Like, it's tough. So I stayed home with them for 3 months and I said, I have got to get the hell out of here. I have to go to work because it was already just kind of ingrained in me. That was my identity. And for some women, if that's what they want to do, that is perfectly okay. But I also think it's perfectly okay for other women, if that is not who you are, you should continue to still have your identity. So, I went back to work. I'm like, I traveled for work. Okay, this is going to be my first trip traveling. And my own mother said to me, who's going to watch the twins? And I was like, the person who went half on their DNA with me, their father, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is still within even some of our communities. We get help and we talk about this village, but there are still a lot of stereotypes, right? There's still very much gendered roles that people have, and that is just a gender role, and that's just how my mom grew up, right? Still, the woman still takes care of the kids. And when we were younger, my mother didn't travel at all. Like, neither did my dad either. But, it was, if anything was going on, we were with my mom. Like, my dad was there, but we went with her. And so she just didn't understand this dynamic of, wait, your husband's going to watch them while you're traveling? Like, he is their father. I'm not leaving them with a complete stranger. Right. So I will say that was something that was really eye-opening to me, because I was like, wow, like my old mom asked me who's going to watch the kids. Right. So that was like one thing. The other thing I would say is similar to what Kat said, is just making sure your children see you in action, see you at work. It will be much easier for them to really understand sometimes why you are away. Because I'm always on the move and I'm always on the go. That is something that I have learned over the years that is really important for me. So even when I travel internationally, the twins come with me, right? So I was in Ghana last summer. They came, they got to see, and it's like every time they see me, they're like, Mom, look, we did not know. Like, you are okay. You are pretty awesome, right? So when they were younger, it was harder to explain. Like, oh, I can't come to your t-ball game or this, or either I would feel guilt, that mom guilt, and I would be breaking my neck, getting on a red eye, haven't had no sleep, so I could make it to this game. Right. But as they got a little bit older, I had to let them know, like, listen, you want mommy to be the best mommy she can be. Right. So mommy needs to also take time for herself. And that was something like we had to talk about, have conversations. So now that they're older, they understand and get it. So if I can't make it back to their game and I'm not going to break my neck and take a red eye, I'm like, daddy will record it. Call me after your game. We'll talk about it. But that's also something important. Like, kids should see you at work. And then we should also, have more conversations with kids about, just like you like your space, right? Like, mommies and daddies need their time in their space so they know and they get it. And, sometimes it's like, mommy is off duty today, so do not ask me anything.
But I love that, so you made me think about so my mother was in the Navy the majority of my childhood. And she would leave for, 6-9 months at a time on the ship. And we just be like, well, why? So it was, and one thing that you mentioned was being able to just communicate with and say, hey, well, call me after the game and we'll, talk about the details. And I remember to this day, I have like a file on my email where I emailed my mother little, things that I think is really goofy today, like my first love, and I really love him, and we're gonna get married, and didn't happen. But but I think it's amazing still having that communication and that line open, right? And it's also a learning lesson there too, where it's like, regardless of where I'm at, I want you to still feel supported. Yes. So I don't have to always be next to you. And if I'm not next to you, that doesn't mean that you lack support from this parent, right? And I think that's a great example of that as well. And of course, the exposure to your career kind of definitely helps with answering those questions and seeing what that looks like, but also seeing what parenthood and juggling parenthood looks like and getting that glimpse early, right? It's better to get it early before it's too late. And that's always been my phrase.
Mhm.
Just a matter of introspect and perspective. So
Yeah, let me add to that. And like, first of all, thank you, Steve. He said, "Great discussion, sir, with authenticity."
thank
Appreciate
you.
that. But what I will say is when Tavari and I separated, right? He we weren't on the greatest terms at that point, and he wanted like half of the time with our son. And I was like, no, I'm the mom. He's with me majority of the time. I'm not gonna do that. But on the flip side, it was a lot of pressure and it was a lot of stress because he doesn't sleep through the night. To this day, he doesn't sleep through the night
Mm,
with me because I'm his best friend. He needs to be right here next to me, touching me. If I get up to go to the bathroom, he's like, "Where are you going?" He's gonna cry. And so I was like stressed out
mm,
about it. And I had just one therapy call about it. And it was a child therapist. And she was like, we've been taught that as the mother, you're the one who has to step up and you're the one who has to do everything. And it all falls on your shoulder. And
mm.
if you don't do it, you're not a good
Yeah.
mom. And that's a fallacy. That's a
Yep.
lie. That if you have a father who wants to step up, let him step up. If he wants to be the person coming here and keeping him overnight and you get a full night's of sleep, there's no problem with that.
Right.
Or if he wants to step up and, he want to keep him for the week and now you get a full week to do your work, to catch up on whatever you need to
Mhm.
catch up, society is wrong on
Yeah.
that and let him
Right.
do it. And so I had to like reevaluate and be like, okay, I can let the reins go a little bit, let my son go with his dad. And, once like a month in, I was like, this sleep is glorious. You want to
Mhm.
keep him
Yes.
like,
Yes, girl.
you want to stay over there? I will, I'm still gonna go over there and hang out and we'll
Mhm.
go to the park. But at nighttime, you going over there? Great.
Yes.
I will stay
That
right
is so, I mean, that is so true. I mean, even just thinking about like Mother's Day was last weekend, right? I always felt like, oh, Mother's Day, I need to be with my kids. My kids
Mm,
need to be with me. But then when Father's Day came, oh, let me give him a break and have the kids and have the kids be with me. So I would joke with my husband all the time. I'm like, the kids with me Mother's Day, the kids with me Father's Day, the kids with me this, because I just felt like, oh, as the mom, I have to be with them. So
right.
that is something I learned. So this mother's like, now on Mother's Day, it's like, what you want to do? I'm like, be totally left alone. I want peace,
Mhm.
quiet, just to do absolutely nothing. And that's what I want to do. Right. But I feel like there was always this expectation. And I got that from my own mom too. She would
Right.
always like, I need my kids with me. And I had to get her conditioned to that. Right. My parents are in New Jersey. I'm in Maryland. So, especially when we first move, are you coming back home? And I would feel such guilt like, oh, I know mommy wants, and I'm the oldest, and I got to be the responsible one to do right. But I had to have her to understand, like, mommy, I'm not going to come home because I'm tired. I'm
Right.
exhausted and I need to rest. And so it was hard that first time telling her. She was like, "Oh, really? So you're not going to come home?" And she was trying to put that guilt on me. And I was like, "Mommy, I need to rest." And so now she's used to it. So even this year, she was just like, "Oh, so what are you guys doing? Mommy, I'm going to be home." Okay, you get some rest and relax and enjoy. And so, I think, like you said, we have to also ask for help.
Right.
And even if people don't want to step up, we have to push them to get out of their comfort zone sometimes and be like, hey, hello, I need you to help me. And I think it's really hard for us, not only as moms, but I think also being in the fields that we're in, it makes it like just compounded because we don't like to ask for help at work either, right?
Right.
because we will be deemed like, oh, does she really know what she's doing? As a Black woman, we have to make sure we're assertive and we know what we're talking about, and we can't be weak and we can't look this way. So that really does play a part, in motherhood and being in the STEM field. And so we have to learn how to ask for help at home and ask for more help at work. I say work smarter, not harder, right? So it's like, well, I don't need to be breaking my neck to show people that I'm working hard. I'll just need to make sure the results are produced. And if that means I get other people on my teams, like, listen, this is what we need to do, I cannot break my neck anymore to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So on the lines of this conversation, because I know we're coming to the end, so I want to ask before I get to the last question, self-care. Do you both have some type of self-care regimen that you throw in there every now and then to offset motherhood, career? I know, Aisha, marriage. CaT, I don't know what you're doing over there, but whatever that is, and all the STEM outreach and advocacy that both of you are doing outside of the career, the motherhood, and everything else, right? Where is the self-care? What does that look like? Or if you have it, because that's completely, normal too nowadays, is just not having a self-care. It's not the healthiest, but it is a common answer to that question.
I mean, that's a good question. I will say I probably don't have the best self-care because doing stuff in STEM is my self-care from not doing my 9 to 5 or dealing with my son. But I will say some of the every once in a while I get to throw in something STEM related, but it's not me really doing a lot of work. So for example, I'm a part of a group called STEM Seas, and you get to sail on a boat for a week with these undergrad students, and they're learning about oceanography or hydrology or anything, or marine biology. And I usually go as not the teacher, but like a TA, which means I don't have to do much, but just show up and like be there. So with that, I sailed the Bering Sea in Alaska. We sailed from Washington to San Diego last year, and this year I was invited to go to Iceland. From Iceland to, I forget where they're landing, but it's still STEM. It's still technically I'm still working, but I'm also away from everybody. I'm on a boat eating great and doing my own thing.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. Take me with you.
I'm like, where do I sign up? That sounds wonderful.
Right.
I'll send you the information. Absolutely.
Yes. I love that. That's self-care times a million.
Yeah, that is great. I'll just say for me, and I think I have definitely had to learn that. It wasn't something that I always had done, but just because the kids are older, once they started being able to like make their own sandwiches and they can use the microwave and, just with them being a little bit older, I said, you know what, I need to actually do something for me. Right. And it was a part of those conversations with talking to them, like, don't you want mommy to be the best mommy that she could be? I need to sometimes be able to just kind of like decompress away from being mommy, being wifey. Like, I need to like click in to Aisha. And I was like, when I come back, I am refreshed and I'm not biting y'all heads off. And y'all want that, right? And they're like, yes. So I'm like, you want mommy to be the best mommy and the best wifey that I can be. I need that alone time. And so I started doing more things for myself, like just going to the spa, right? And just trying to have a regular regimen, right? It's not as often as I would like, but I still make sure I get it in there. So that's one thing that I do for myself. Sometimes I do staycations, right? I'll be right here in Maryland and I'll be like, I just need to go to a hotel and spend the night alone and just sit in the bed, watch TV, catch up on work, and just complete utter silence. And that has, I mean, it's just one night, but I really come back like, okay, I feel refreshed because although I may say I'm going to my office and I need to do work, I may get asked 50 million questions by all three of them.
Right.
Right? So I'm like, to do that is refreshing. And then the last thing I'll say is I actually joined a Black mother group in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And these are moms of like at all different stages,
Okay.
all different like backgrounds, industries. And I love it because you can kind of hop in and hop out, right? You'll find a group of moms that I might have 10 different things that I love, right? But maybe some of my girlfriends don't love to do that, right? So this way I can jump in. Oh, there are people who like to go to revivals, right? Okay, there's a group. Okay, we're going to go to a revival. Last weekend, we all got together. We went to the Janet Jackson concert. And it's like, girl, we're going to go to the concert. And this weekend, there is a conference called the Mom Friends, and it's only moms, and we just get together for the weekend and we have workshops to tune into ourselves. You know, we have like real talk about our bodies and just stuff that, like you said, Dr. Tay, you know, that we may not say out loud. And it's like sometimes like I don't like my kids, right? Sometimes my husband gets on my nerves, right? And it's kind of taboo. It's like, oh, you should, like, you got to whisper it and say it like in the closet, right? But it's like
Right.
we have these conversations out loud, and it doesn't mean that we don't love our kids or we don't love our partners or our
Right.
spouses, but we're human beings, right? We all get on each other's nerves and get irritated, and we should be able to talk about that, right? And so I am leaving on Friday, and I'm looking forward to the weekend, just relaxing.
I know that's right. I love the fact that both of you have shared your self care basically says mothers have lives outside of being a mother, right? Like you're always a mother, but there's some additional things. And then and this is the funny thing, my head automatically went to this, Aisha, when you said, your kids can make sandwiches. The fact that that now is a standard where you are okay with leaving them. I love that bar, right? Can you make a sandwich? All right, I'm out. Like,
Yes. Can you make
I
that
love
sandwich?
that.
Yes.
Love that. So I guess we're gonna end soon. I'm gonna throw it back to Kat, but before we end, I want to ask the last question, which is if you could tell anyone and everybody out there who is listening, is going to listen to this later on, about being a mother and balancing your career and everything else, your journey, the challenges that come with it, and even the blessings that come with it, what would be that one thing you want us to all learn about your story and take away from this conversation?
Oh, that's a good question. I think one of the biggest thing is everyone's journey is different. Do not compare yourself to anyone else. Don't compare your birth story. Don't compare the age you decided to have kids, who you decided to have kids with, whatever you decided to do in your life when it comes to your work, when it comes to balancing. Everyone's story is different. And when you start comparing and you start saying, oh, I like the way they did this, or I didn't do this correctly, or we create these false narratives in our heads that we're not good moms, right? There is no book on being a mom. There is no better way. Your child's personality is different than their child's personality. What works for them may not work for yours, and it's fine. That's a-okay. Just realizing that as you go down this path, maybe hopefully you can find someone to talk to. Hopefully it's your partner, it's your friend. You find that mom's group. I don't necessarily think you should tell your whole story to social media, but everyone is different, and if that's how you need to get it off your chest,
Right.
fine. But just know that everyone is different, and being okay with that.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Aisha?
Yeah, what I would say is when people like, oh, how do you balance? I'm like, there is no balance. When people say, oh, and they have these seminars and workshops on balancing, no. So I tell moms that sometimes I'm like, listen, you're not going to balance. I mean, sometimes that's just, you're going to have a handful over here one day and nothing in this hand. And sometimes you'll have 5 things and 2. It's not going to be equal, right? Even being in a marriage, like they like 50-50. Everything's not going to be 50-50. So it's not always equal. I completely agree with the things that Kat said as well. Everyone's journey is different. So just focus on what it is that you want to do, you know, who you are and your children. And they're going to be peaks and valleys. So on that path, you know, you're going to go up, you're going to come down, and those phases are going to change as your children grows, as your relationships grow, and as your career grows. And it's okay that that changes. It should change. It should not remain the same.
Absolutely. Thank you. And I think everyone with that is listening, that is sending comments, you know, with the real talk and authenticity behind this conversation, they're getting what I feel from it. I appreciate both of you and being open and able to speak about your stories. Because like I said, I'm one of the millions that's probably going to listen and that doesn't have this story yet, but will have this story. So it's good to know that there's a lot of common ups and downs, the peaks, the valleys, you know, becoming a mother and knowing that you're more than just a mother and you could have a life as well. And I could take all of those lessons with me as I decide when this is going to be my journey to take place and for me to go embark on it. So thank you so much for this amazing conversation. I'm going to throw it to Kat to end us off.
Yes. Thank you both for joining today. Thank you for making me the spotlight, which is rarely because I'm always the one interviewing. I want to thank everyone who joined us tonight, everyone who listened, who's going to listen later, watch this later. I think this is an amazing conversation that needs to continue. And Dr. Tay and I have been talking about upcoming podcasts. So on the 31st, we're going to be talking with an OBGYN about Black maternal health and why that's very important. And in June, we want to talk to the dads. We want the dads to join us and talk to us. You know, we want to celebrate Father's Day and have conversations about being a man and working in STEM and being a father. So if that's what you want to have that conversation, join us, be a guest, or be in the comments. We would love to have you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right. That's it. You guys.
Thank you. Have a good one.